The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Presentation done by Brooke Breedlove. The Sam Says. Character list. Gregor. He is the main character, and he has undergone a life-changing transformation. He's turned into a bug. Greta. She is the sister of Gregor. She's a very talented violin artist who also is the only one who showed sympathy towards Gregor after he had changed. She's a very important character in this play. The father. Although never given a name, Mr. Samsa is a frustrated and depressed man. He owned a business that failed, causing him and his family to go into a crippling debt. The mother, Mrs. Samsa, plays a crucial role in this play. She loved her son Gregor all the way until the end. The first transformation. Don't you want to be on your way? The soft voice. Gregor was startled when he heard his voice answering. This quote was from The Metamorphosis. Gregor had woken up abruptly by his mother. He was late to work. Gregor was struggling to get up. He couldn't move, and his legs were no longer there, but instead his whole body had changed into a bug. Their reactions. Mr. Samso was confused and frustrated that Gregor lost his job and why he wouldn't get up to go to work. That when he saw what Gregor had become, he lashed out and physically hurt Gregor in his new body. This picture is from the graphic novel of The Metamorphosis. It shows how his father's reaction was and how he took his frustration out on Gregor. You can see the frustration on his face, and you can see the confusion and the scaredness on Gregor's, and you can see how he physically pushes Gregor and kicks him into his room. The second transformation. Up until this point of the play, Greta and Mr. Samsa protected the mother from seeing Gregor. Mrs. Samsa loved her son so much she was drawn to see Gregor. She was so mortified by the sight of Gregor, she fainted and hurt herself. This is another picture from the graphic novel. Mr. Samsa had come home and noticed that Greta was holding his wife and that she was hurt. He was confused and thought that Gregor had lashed out and hurt his mother. So then Mr. Samsa then, once again, hurt Gregor by lobbing an apple at Gregor, which lodged into his skin. This is a turning point in the play. This is where you see the family starting to turn on Gregor. He is no longer their family, but a burden and just an insect. The third transformation. After a while, she begins neglecting Gregor. When he tries to approach her one last time, she turns on him viciously, falsely accusing him of wanting to kick the rest of the family out of the house, saying that he is not really Gregor, but a creature that must be got rid of. Gregor was trying to approach Greta to let her know that when he was at work, he was trying to make money to pay for her to go to violin school. Greta cared for Gregor. She brought him food, and when she noticed he liked crawling, she cleaned out his room so he would have more space to explore. This quote is important because Greta becomes carefree and neglects Gregor. She stops feeding him and no longer checks to see if he's doing okay. The only person who cared for him and wanted Gregor back finally looked at him as only a bug. He had become a burden. We must try to get rid of it, the sister now said decisively to her father, for the mother in her coughing fit wasn't listening to anything. It is killing you both. I see it coming. When people have to work as hard as we do, they cannot also tolerate this endless torment at home. At this point in the play, the family had to get jobs. The father became depressed and angry with his life and how Gregor made their new lifestyle rigorous. Greta talked to her father and tried to convince him to find a way to get rid of Gregor. All while Gregor is in the next room listening to the horrifying things his sister is saying about him. This is a very frustrating part in the play because Gregor went day after day to his job that he hated to pay a debt that he didn't even make. He tried to make his family lifestyle better by getting a job and trying to find ways to get money to pay for their house, to pay to get rid of the debt, to pay to find a way to get Greta to go to school so she can get out of the lifestyle that they're living to make something better for herself. And for Gregor to have to listen to his family to find out ways to get rid of him was very frustrating and probably so sad that he fell into a hard depression himself. He was frustrated and trying to figure out how to change himself back into a human so that he can be part of the family again. But he realized that they no longer thought of him as their son or their brother, but just as the bug that he had become. The final transformation. The result of this newfound strength is that Mr. Samsa and his family are suddenly able to contemplate a happy and fulfilling life. Their jobs will lead to better things, and their daughter will get married. Gregor no longer was a family disappointment. After Greta had spoke to her father about setting him free, he had passed away in his sleep. This quote was the next day. The family wanted to go on a train ride. They noticed how lovely and happy their family is now. Their jobs led to better things. They can now move out of their crammy apartment and into a comfy house. They no longer have the burden of debt, frustration, anger, hate, or Gregor. And it was something of a confirmation of their new dreams and good intentions, when at the end of their journey, the daughter first lifted herself up and stretched her young body. This quote was the last scene from the play. After the Samsas noticed how their lives had changed once again, and for the better this time, the mother and father saw how Greta had transformed from a girl to a young woman, someone who they can marry off and live a life weighted free, happy, and in love. They noticed how their life had changed. Once the thing that was dragging them down was no longer there, they felt that they were free. Although they felt guilty about how Gregor had looked after he had passed, that he was so skinny and that they didn't give him attention or feed him, they still felt free. They felt as though they could live their life burden-free, how they could move out of the house that they were stuck in because of Gregor. They wanted to move to a new house where they can start their whole family over again with a clean slate, no longer with Gregor, no longer with their debt, with their anger, with their hate, but free of life. The characters' outcomes. Gregor's overall metamorphosis caused him to become depressed and dependent on his family, who no longer considered him their son or brother, which ended with his death. Father and Mother Samsa changed in ways of financially and mentally. Their financial debacle was diffused. They learned to love the small things and appreciate the beauty and youth of their daughter Greta. Greta forgot about her brother and who he once was, and diminished the only thought of Gregor to just a bug. Greta, mother, and father live happier and a more fulfilled life once Gregor no longer existed. Change can be positive or negative in life, but how you deal with it can define you. In this case, Gregor's family never gave his body a new chance. They just thought of him as a freak of nature. They wanted him gone and out of their lives, and in the end, they got just what they wanted. In this case, with the Metamorphosis play, change was negative to them until change was a positive thing. Gregor's overall transformation caused a very negative life for them. They all had to get jobs, they all became depressed and frustrated towards Gregor, and then once Gregor had passed, another change had occurred, which was positive in their lives. They no longer had to deal with Gregor. They no longer had to deal with their debt. They were happy. They could move out. They could live a better life for themselves. So change is positive and negative, and in this play it's both, because in the beginning there's a negative change, but in the end there's a positive change. We're excited.